Hi guys, it's marianakebaso. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to improve your notes / note-taking style. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first tip that I have is to invest in quality supplies. And when I say quality supplies, I do not mean that you need to go out and buy the most expensive pens and the most expensive notebooks.
What?
To me, quality supplies just means supplies that are good quality. They don't necessarily have to be expensive. One of my favorite inexpensive pens is the Pilot G2 series. These pens are so good and they can literally be found everywhere at Walmart, at Target, at Amazon, at most office supply stores, and they are generally the cheaper pens that are still good quality. Obviously, there's cheaper pens than the Pilot G2, but this is the cheapest pen that has amazing quality and writes flawlessly on basically any surface.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same.
So I recommend getting a good pen and kind of skimping out on notebooks, because a good pen can make the writing experience on a cheap notebook like this Walmart notebook very nice and fluid and beautiful, rather than an inexpensive pen on expensive paper such as the Kokyo Campus binder and Sarasa paper, which is expensive, it's pricey. So when I say invest in quality supplies, I just mean supplies that are gonna last and you like using. They don't necessarily have to be super pricey, and they don't necessarily have to be the supplies that I use. I share the supplies that I use as a suggestion. It's always a suggestion.
What's not clicking? What's not clicking?
It is never for you to be forced to go out and buy everything that I use. It is just a suggestion. Are you kidding me? This truck does not want to let me live.
Cut the cameras. Deadass.
Oh my goodness. Anyways, the next tip that I have is to focus on summarizing the concept and the content and the material rather than just writing the slide word for word. So this has helped me in improving how quickly I write my notes, because I tend to write kind of slow. So it helps that when I'm writing notes, I'm not just writing word for word. I'm also summarizing it as I go. So the only time I don't do this is for definitions, because teachers usually test on definitions and they like to test on exact wording. So for definitions, I copy those down word for word, but for everything else, I tend to summarize the concept and put it in my own words that I can understand, because I think that education is a lot more fun and easy to go about when you actually understand what you're learning, because it is quite easy to get good grades in the American school system, but it is a lot harder to actually understand the concept. So to fully understand the concept, you got to immerse yourself in the material and really understand it and ask for help. Anyways, this video isn't about how to become a better student. I already have a video on that. That was last week's video, so go watch that if you want more tips and tricks on how to become a better student. So the next tip is to use diagrams and examples and concept maps and timelines in your notes. Okay, your notes do not just have to be bullet pointed or sentences or big paragraphs. Okay, break up the information and try to make it as visually pleasing as possible, because they're fun to look at and it makes me more inclined to look back at my notes. And the more inclined I am to look back at my notes, the better off I will be when it comes to tests, because I've read over my notes so much, or I've studied over my notes so much. They look so nice. Okay, and using diagrams and concept maps and timelines and things like that kind of force you to think about the material rather than just write it, because it's very easy to passively write the notes, but as I'm writing the notes, I try to make my brain as active in the note writing process as possible, which is why in tip number 2 I talked about summarizing, because when I'm summarizing, I am forced to think about the information and process it in my brain and put it into terms that I understand and use, rather than just copy it down. The same thing can be applied to the tip that I'm talking about right now in using diagrams and concept maps and timelines. You are kind of forced to think about the material in a different way. So for instance, instance, you're taking history notes and you're learning about the US history timeline. So instead of just taking notes, 10 sentences on the US history timeline, instead you can put it in an actual timeline. And this forces you to kind of think about how these events, operate together as a group on this line. That's just an example. There's plenty of instances in which you can use diagrams and concept maps and timelines and any type of visual example to help get your point across in notes without actually writing it down word for word. That was just an example, and yeah, you guys should use it, okay? And the last tip that I have for improving your notes / note-taking style is to pick a color for the note-taking session or the chapter that you're taking notes on or the topic that you're taking notes on, and use that one color for the whole entire notes. So this is what I do, so that's why it's a tip, because I do it. Anyways, I do this. I pick one color and I just keep on using it over and over and over again until I'm done with that chapter or that topic or that note-taking session. So for instance, I will insert a clip of me flipping through my old psychology notes. So I picked a color for every chapter, and as you can see, I switched up the color every chapter. Now you don't necessarily have to do this. This is just a personal preference. I know some people prefer to assign one color for every topic. So for instance, they'll make math blue and then English red or something like that, and they'll prefer to do it that way. But for me personally, I like to switch up the colors because I get bored easily. So switching up the colors makes it just more interesting for me to take notes, and also flipping through it looks really cool when there's a bunch of colors rather than if it was just one color. It looks a little bit boring and the same and mundane, and I don't like that. I like to make things interesting and make things as nice as possible.